Welcome to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, RockAuto.com, and by Die Hard. Here's your MotorWeek podcast host, John Davis.
Well, hello and welcome to MotorWeek Podcast 123. That's easy as ABC, 123. I'm John Davis, and joining me around our table up in our Sound Studio A today is road test producer Ben Davis.
Hello, hello.
And assistant producer Greg Carlos.
Good to be back.
Our writer Patrick Lucas.
Hey now.
Who's also the producer of the podcast. We've got a lot to talk about. Lightning round, a viewer question, our rant and rave section. But first, let's get to the cars. And the first one we're going to talk about is something rather unusual. It's the Callaway Rocky Ridge Special Edition Silverado. I mean, it's a awesome truck. Okay, who wants to start? This, first of all, when you take Callaway Engineering, and who we have enormous respect for their powertrains and their cars.
True.
And then Rocky Ridge, who I have to admit, this was my first experience with this upfitter. How did it come together with the Silverado? What does anybody think?
At first, it's the shock value. You don't really know how to take it. At least I didn't. It was kind of gaudy, and there's a lot of chrome on it.
A lot of chrome.
But you get in it, and you really start inspecting it. It's really well done. Rocky Ridge did a great job, I think. It is a good-looking truck, I think, after you get used to that initial impact of it. There's a few minor things that I would tweak, maybe not have that red Chevy badge, tone down some of the chrome, but it's a fun truck to drive.
Yeah, but the truck buyers want the chrome.
Yeah,
the big truck buyers want the chrome.
If you're buying that, and if you're going all in and you're getting all this performance, I think you want your truck to look different. So I liked all the little details. I was nervous when I got in. I thought there's so much power in this thing, it's gonna be.
But it's easily managed.
Oh, the power!
Scary.
I thought the power was very manageable.
Super easy, yeah. And so I was pleasantly surprised.
I mean, I would probably do the same treatment on a work truck trim with the black grille and stuff, but that's just appearance preference. I was pretty impressed with the way Callaway integrated the supercharger, and they reprogrammed everything to run efficiently with the trans and the supercharger and the added lift kit and stuff. And it was,
what was it, 4 inches? 4-inch lift?
I believe it was a 4-inch lift, and you have to ask yourself, is this the way I'd want to go, or would I just go to the Ford dealer and buy a F-150 Raptor already, pretty much the same effect? And I don't know. This is essentially maybe
that's
a Raptor
that's
for
a
Chevy
factory
fans.
vehicle versus something that's got both Rocky Ridge and Reeves Callaway's names all over. That's
True.
That's pretty prestigious.
But that's also blasphemy in the truck world, I feel like. If a Ford guy hardly ever switches to Chevy, a Chevy guy hardly ever switches to Ford.
That's
so
a strong point. That's a strong
happen.
point. Until Chevy builds their own Raptor fighter, this is the closest you're going to get, probably.
I thought the integration, too, was extremely good. And actually, when you got inside, there wasn't a whole lot that told you were in something, that unique, which I guess is a good thing for a lot of people since the interior of the Silverado is pretty good anyway. But, the price for this, I've forgotten, $85.
Well, I was just about to ask what the price was.
Just
Is
under
it worth
90.
it? Is it worth it?
87.
That is a tremendous amount of money.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money, but then you take a look at what's rolling off the assembly line, and people are buying, stock trucks loaded up for 70 or over. So it's not so far out of whack that you would say, this is ridiculous. So anyway, I think it made a very good impression on us.
Yeah, if you got the cash.
If you got the cash.
Do
you
it.
got the cash, you get the flash. All right, next. Convertibles. I mean, it was summertime when we did this test and made a lot of sense. But it was also our first exposure to the Mustang convertible, 2015, of course, all-new Mustang. So this was a GT model convertible. Unfortunately, we had an automatic, which I think left a little bit desired. But otherwise, does the car make a good convertible conversion? I think that's kind of the question, because there aren't that many 4-place or 2+2 convertibles out there that are halfway affordable. What do you think?
See, I think you're asking the wrong person here because I'm not a big convertible fan. But I did have it for the weekend, and it's a nice highway cruiser for sure. And I'm a fan of the Mustang. It was just there were certain things about this specific convertible that I didn't like. And we had one the other day that looked 10 times better than the one we had, and it came down to, I think, wheel choice and sidewall on the tire. Ours had a really thick sidewall, made for a pretty decent ride, but it didn't look very good. It didn't look very attractive. And then, like, once I started picking out things, I started noticing other things that I didn't like about the Mustang in general, like the switchgear down at the bottom behind the shifter. So you have to
The
kind of
little
reach
toggle
over to get it.
switches.
Yeah, but you can't push it down. You have to flip it up, which is awkward. You want to push it down and you can't.
We noted in our original road test of the coupe, as much as we loved the redone interior, that was one thing. Having those toggle switches, maybe a little bit higher, was something we should do.
I believe it has the potential to be a great convertible, but until they can get the seatbelt anchors on the body of the vehicle instead of just strapped to the side of the seat as an afterthought,
Well, they loop through
carved
the
into your
seat.
neck, yeah.
Yeah.
Until they can do something closer to what BMW is doing with their 2 Series convertible, for me, it's not going to be what it could be.
It was funny, as we all universally loved the coupe, but we had very mixed feelings on the convertible. And I think at one point it was almost like there was so much light now getting into the interior with the top down that the materials didn't look as great in daylight as they do in the coupe, where you have much less light. And I think that could be just a perception thing. I don't think it's quite up to European standards. It was a little bit more cowl shake than we see in something like the 2 Series. Nice car. I think our conclusion was that the American pony car formula works best with a hard top.
I like the glass roof.
Yeah.
Is that you can still get that
Yep.
on the new ones. I think I would much prefer the glass roof.
Yeah,
over
I
the
will say
convertible.
that the automatic really sucked all the fun out of it, because I could understand, there's some rattling, some squeaking, some cow shake, like you said, but when you're rolling through with the manual transmission, it feels like you want to feel all that. You feel
That's what a pony car is all
right.
about.
You feel the car. With the automatic, it's just kind of like, oh, that's annoying.
So nice convertible if you want to go cruising with a muscle car. But maybe if you really want a pony car, you should stick with the hardtop and stick with the manual. It's going to be interesting to see what Camaro does with their new
And they don't
convertible.
make a Challenger convertible. Right?
No, no.
That would be awesome.
Would that wide a
That would
vehicle?
be
It probably would be.
incredible.
It actually probably have a real back seat. Okay, let's move on to something that's in none of our price ranges, the 2015 Rolls-Royce Wraith. I went out and actually drove this car out in Phoenix and a couple of years ago, and my impression at the time was, really not my cup of tea. I mean, I understand this is supposed to be the the Rolls-Royce for people that want to drive themselves around. Yeah, I thought it was in the two-tone color that the ones we drove out there, I thought really ostentatious. This car actually looked, when I first saw it sitting in our parking lot, I liked it a lot more. And I don't know, it is a personal taste vehicle, but what did everybody else think?
I was telling somebody that I was driving a Rolls Royce, and they were like, what did it feel like? I was like, well, it's a huge car, and it feels really heavy.
And this is their small car.
Really
Yeah,
wallowy.
It's got a ton of power, but it's like a massive car, and you definitely feel it. But I mean, you still can't knock the handcrafted material quality. It's an amazing interior. It's an amazing place to spend some time inside.
This car really does seem like a little over the top, but then that's the point, I guess.
Super thick carpets and
Yeah.
And the Starlight headliner,
Oh,
where you
can't
can
forget
get
that.
your
Pretty
you
cool.
can get your
Can't
birth
forget
that.
date
That was awesome.
stars put up there for a price.
and we rarely get a Rolls, so I just used to all the Bentleys we get and seeing the Audi switchgear in the
Yeah.
Bentleys. It was weird to see BMW switchgear in the Rolls.
Well, yeah, at first I wasn't sure because like you said, I'm so used to driving Bentleys, and when I hear that specific dinging when you open the door that's BMW, I'm like, wait a second, this isn't a Bentley. That's cool. Yeah, you mentioned the carpet. Each carpet mat weighs like 10 pounds. It's incredible.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it was quite a piece of work. It's aimed. A lot of it this car was aimed at the Asian market, which I guess until the recent Chinese meltdown was probably doing better than it is at the moment. But interesting car, certainly. I think since all of the transformations of both Bentley and Rolls-Royce with the different owners, these cars have come a long way. I mean, they're not they're not antiques with flashy modern trim anymore. They're real motor cars.
Did you ever get used to the doors opening the opposite way?
Just about to ask that. No.
Not me. I mean, I remember when I was first exposed to it, I thought, okay, it's got power assist and all that, but I thought it's just weird. You know?
Easy to get out of, but awkward to
Awkward
get into.
to get into,
You're like,
yeah.
how do I do this?
Yeah, I looked stupid so many times trying to open it, and then like it opening into me because I was opening it from the wrong side.
Yeah.
But then again, they don't purport to be something for everyone.
You should have somebody opening your doors.
Yeah,
Even if you are driving,
that's
someone should be
what the
opening that
driver
door.
does. If this is your personal car, when you get back, he should be there
wasn't
to
fooling
take
anybody.
care of it, or your valet. All right, let's move on now to our lightning round. We have a chance for our panelists to talk about something for 2 minutes, and this we're going to talk about the Bentley. A Bentley. We've been catching more and more glimpses of the Bentley Bentayga, the brand's ultra luxo, over-the-top SUV. It has a look that's very classic Bentley in terms of handcrafted details and overall luxury, though they're also teasing it as a real off-roader. So how is it going to compare, especially when at the current time, if you're in the upper price brackets, you tend to be looking at Range Rovers or Porsche Cayennes as the world best. Should those brands be worried about a Bentley entry, or is that just going to be another stratosphere?
I don't think that. I think maybe Range Rover has I don't think they might be a little concerned. I don't think they should be worried, but I don't really think the Cayenne is in that really. I don't think you're going to see a lot of those off road.
No,
as
I
much
don't
as you
either.
would.
Yeah, I think if you're going for pure speed, you'd go Cayenne. Range Rover, maybe like a Range Rover Sport. I think I was reading that the Bentayga is going to be the size of about a Q7 and a
based on
Cayenne.
that.
Right, exactly. So I would say Range Rover Sport more so than the big Range Rover.
I think it's going to be priced way above all of its competition. So
That's a good point too.
you know, I don't think it's going to be a competitor. I think it's going to be like, hey, you know, those are fine luxury, super luxury, but now we're super luxury.
Yeah.
And good hardware.
Yeah, I don't think they should be too worried because I've driven Range Rovers off-road, and they can do some pretty amazing stuff. So I don't think they have to worry about that. Bentley's going to probably have to work a little bit to figure out that and really get it down. But I think it will be cool seeing something other than Range Rovers now because you see so many of them.
You do.
They really fill the road, and that's, I mean, if you want, for whatever reason, a luxury off-roader, that's pretty much
Or you
where
want the
went.
prestige. You want something that not everybody else has
Yeah,
got.
it'll just be cool for people who really want to stand out.
I think it'll be in every music video you can imagine.
You know, from what I was looking at, very few select shots of like the interior. I think they're trying like a whole new interior design, starting with this. I may be wrong.
That
but,
makes sense.
But yeah, so they're really testing out their new interior like layout scheme, like maybe new materials,
Which
technology.
really hasn't changed a lot
Right.
in like over a decade.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but what was the last Bentley had in a Mulsanne or something like that?
Yeah.
That it felt a little, I guess,
Well,
dated
even
as
all
the
the
word.
Continentals, I mean, they've stayed pretty much true to the course that they've over the last.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's handcrafted. They're all extremely well done, so they don't want to change it like every
No.
year and have to learn new techniques. But yeah, I agree. It is dated, and it's time for a change.
All right.
All right.
Can't wait to drive it.
All right.
Let's talk about a viewer question. This is from Joseph. My next car is a ways off, but when some models catch my fancy, I research them. I would want one with the IIHS, that's the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety's top safety pick plus rating. At this rating, only 3 cars, all of them Volvos, get ratings with standard equipment. The rest require extra cost options. Why should safety be an extra cost option? Well, okay, I can understand how some don't want electronic nanny spoiling their driving fun, but why do most car companies insist on bundling advanced emergency braking and other things with totally unrelated features like moonroofs? Why should I pay for a sunroof and leather seats? Sometimes even be forced to move up several trim levels for added safety. A long story, a long question, Joseph, but basically what he's saying is, right now, if you want the absolute tops in safety, like radar braking and in some cases things like blind spot monitoring, you have to go up from the basic trim level and maybe get things like leather, and heated and cooled seats and so forth. Okay, I think I know why the automakers don't do that, but what do you think? It's called money.
Yeah, it costs money to build those
yeah,
things and
there it
to
is.
put those in cars.
And they want to recoup their investment.
I'd say, I think they're kind of worth it, honestly. After seeing some of these advanced braking systems and even just other safety systems, it's kind of worth the money.
I think he's saying that he knows
it.
that they're worth the money, but stuff like he doesn't need leather seats or a sunroof or something like that. And I get that, but I don't know, that would require totally revamping the way they bundle.
Yeah, it's the
structure
trickle-down theory
selling
that
cars.
car makers have used since the 70s. You basically, when you come out with a new feature, you force people to pay for it by, throwing in things like leather seats and so forth and so on. And then the next year, somebody else will have that feature at a lower level, and then eventually somebody puts it as standard. And then the government takes a look at it and says, hey, that ought to be on everything. I mean, we saw it with airbags. We saw it with anti-lock brakes. We saw it with, skid systems. And the government's already said that automatic braking makes so much sense. They would like to see it on virtually everything. So, Joseph, it's kind of the way the system works to recoup the cost of developing these systems to the car companies and to their suppliers. But if you hang in there, probably less than 2 more years, you're going to get your wish, and virtually all of the radar and camera-based systems will probably be either standard or just one.
I think they're just trying to make as much money now as they can.
Absolutely. Before they are told that it's got to be on everything, and then the car makers go to the component manufacturers and say, what's your cheapest price? So that's the way it works, Joseph. But you're not ready to get your car yet, so keep on looking. By the time I think you're ready to go out and buy, you'll have your wish. Anybody else want to throw anything to that?
I'm just waiting to rant.
All right, let's move on. Rant and rave. Anyone got something in mind? Go ahead, man.
Man's locked and loaded.
He's ready.
Volume knobs.
On stereo.
Recently, I was on the CTSV, and I've kind of made peace with the Q system a little more now that I've realized that there's a mute button on the steering wheel, and you don't have to go and do the slide thing anymore to get it to turn down. And I'm cool with that. And I noticed on this Volvo, it's got most everything's on the touchscreen, but it has a really nice old big round rotary volume knob. And if only the Q system had any kind of volume knob, I would be at peace with myself much more. I think every vehicle, despite technology, how advanced it is, it should always have a fail-safe volume knob because...
I actually go one step further. I think when it comes to audio systems, you need a volume knob and you need a station select knob because when you are driving, they are the easiest to work, period.
Yeah. And if you're in an emergency situation where you need that stereo down quick, you're programmed. Well, I mean, I've been driving for 20-plus years. I'm programmed to look for a volume knob.
Chrysler's got a good one where they got it behind the steering wheel. Volume here,
good stuff.
And tune up, tune down here, and that's so easy to work. But yeah, I agree. Everyone else,
little simple manual system, something that's intuitive.
Yeah,
something that your passenger could reach over and operate if they needed to.
And it's interesting. We've got this. We have a Lexus IS in the parking lot, an F Sport, and in that case, they give you a volume knob and a station knob, but they're the only 2 knobs or controls in there that aren't highlighted somehow, and they're black against the black face,
so it wasn't
and
just
you can't
me,
see it.
Yeah, it wasn't just me, because I was looking for them forever. I'm like, how do I do that? Yeah, you're right. They're really hidden.
So if you're going to put them in there, at least somehow
shout it out. Let people know, man. I like it.
Yeah.
Kudos to Audi, who has it has a little volume knob right by their
Down
center
on
controller.
the center controller.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I think of all the central control systems, the Audi system still remains
the
best.
only problem with that is it's counterintuitive to every other one.
down.
Yeah, the scrolling up, scrolling down is backwards. I mean, according to me, I'm sure other
Happy
people
place,
feel
bro.
differently.
Happy place.
Sorry, you got me ranting and raving.
Well, but the one thing that all of these technology engineers seem to miss is they get caught up in the technology and they forget about the human interface, and then they have to go back and make change after change after change. I mean, we're now back to so many manual controls on instrument panels to augment the touch screens and so forth that we've got redundant controls for almost everything in some of the cars coming in, and that seems to be silly.
Yeah.
we're never going to be happy.
We're never going to be happy.
Not to beat it any further, but back to that XC90, it had all those shortcut buttons. And one was a hazard light, and one was tune left, right. But I mean, and defrost, just to have all that touchscreen advanced technology, but to have those shortcut buttons for simple, super important things like hazard and defrost. I thought
What was this called? What was this in? The
This is the
Volvo?
XC90. Yeah,
Yeah.
the
It's
shortcut
awesome.
button row, hazard light, defrost, volume.
The first thing I do on almost any new car that we get into is I try the voice recognition system and just hit the button and tell it to do something like go to a satellite radio channel. I have yet to find one that you don't have to basically go through 3 or 4 menus, to get
Honda's
to it.
the worst, man. I find myself cussing at the Honda.
And it's like, if the systems are going to work, now I understand some of them still need to learn your voice and all that, but you're talking about, hey, I've got to tell it its navigation, and then I've got to tell it where, a destination, and then I've got to spell it out. And you're thinking the idea of the voice systems is it will be so instantaneous that it's not distracting. But I find those systems pretty much as distracting
Sync
as anything
3.
else.
Sync 3 is coming out with Ford,
Yeah.
and I got a chance to test it. I was on a Ford event a couple months ago, and they tried to simplify it so that you can speak in just like kind of generalities. Like, I want to go to 1901 South Charles
Right.
Street, Baltimore, and
Awesome.
it will autofill. It'll
So
understand.
that makes it
you.
even better than Siri, which up to now has probably been the best. Well, that's a non-Microsoft system, I believe.
They moved away from Microsoft now.
Well, I guess we're all hoping that the voice recognition systems will get better than
Just gotta hang in there.
they are at the moment. As with all technology, and that brings us to a close for our MotorWeek podcast 123.
We could rant rave.
Thanks to everybody around the table, Ben Davis, Greg Carlos, Patrick Lucas, and I want to thank our audio engineer for today, David Wainwright, who's sitting in, podcast creator Bob Mixter, and of course our producer Patrick Lucas.
Hey.
Man with the bell. Hit it again. There we go.
Oh, every
All right,
time.
so
I missed
next
my
time.
cue.
Gets me every
I
time.
missed my cue.
Be sure to watch Motor Week every week on your local public television station and also on the Velocity cable channel. Listen to our podcast. Everything that you want to know about us is at MotorWeek.org. Thanks very much for being a part of Motor Week for so many years. I'm John Davis. For all of us, we'll see you next time.
You have been listening to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, RockAuto.com, and by Die Hard. For additional information on podcasts, videos, and showtimes, visit our website at MotorWeek.org. And watch MotorWeek, television's longest-running automotive magazine series each week on your local PBS station.